Hello, I'm Carlos L. Arce, a 76-year-old, 100% service-disabled Vietnam War combat infantry veteran. I'm also a husband, a father, and a grandfather, as well as a sociologist, a news junkie, and a student of history. This is my podcast entitled 15 Minutes with Carlos. I am beginning today with a range of socio-political issues under the heading of Surrender Management, America in Retreat. It is based on an 11-book series I published in 2011, suggesting that we have surrendered our national values to small but loud pressure groups, that we are in constant retreat at home and abroad, when we should be defending our Constitution, our national values, our English language, our American way of life, and our national security. I have written a book on each of the 11 topics, and now I have condensed them into 15-minute information capsules for average persons to grasp the essence and become basically conversant on these issues. As the great American writer Mark Twain would tell us, quote, "If I had more time, I would write a shorter story," unquote. In these episodes, you will hear a description of the issues, views from the liberals, view from the conservatives, and my take. Along the way, I have sprinkled quotes from the past. Let me start by quoting President Thomas Jefferson. Quote, "I like the dreams of the future better than the history of the past," unquote. So, let's dream on. Today our topic is undocumented immigration. It is a controversial topic, but my presentation will be neutral and fair. My aim is to inform. Some basic facts about undocumented immigration. We began, we are, and we must be a nation of immigrants. Our citizens' population is shrinking. Our low birth rate is 1.7 children per couple. We're not even replacing ourselves. We also have an aging population. Close to 20% of us are over the age of 65, like me. And our failing public school system is not delivering enough qualified workers. We do not have a world-class American education winning team. We need more productive citizens. We need more legal immigrants. Look, the magnitude of the social challenge is huge. It is a serious problem to have 25 to 35 million undocumented people in the shadows. Not the 11 million some conveniently continue to shamefully suggest. In a democracy, we need to compromise without selling our souls. Let me quote legendary anthropologist Dr. Margaret Mead. Quote, "It may be necessary temporarily to accept a lesser evil, but one must never label a necessary evil as good," unquote. Let's consider views of the liberals. Most undocumented immigrants are economic refugees, escaping horrendous poverty. Extreme poverty is hard for us to imagine. There is a classic anecdote about begging toddlers where a mother dismembers one of her starving small children to use as a more effective begging tool on the streets. An open southern border is an invitation to come over, and a legal entrapment when they do. They become instant law violators, illegals in hiding. They travel many miles, enduring abuse there and here. Most undocumented immigrants settle to work and ask to stay. Remember, the American public is complicit by giving them domestic jobs, gardeners, cleaning ladies, construction workers, home aides to care for the elderly, and more. We need to bring change now, not tomorrow, not the next generation. Let me quote President Barack Obama. Quote, change will not come if we wait for some other person or some other time. We are the ones we've been waiting for. We are the change that we seek. Unquote. Consider the views of conservatives. Success in America has been predicated on our natural social assimilation machine. Immigrants learn English, our culture, and pledge our allegiance. Today, tens of millions of undocumented immigrants have arrived rapidly from mostly Spanish-speaking homogeneous countries. Those numbers are undigestible by our natural social assimilation machine. The result is forced biculturalism with national Spanish radio and television networks and having to choose a language when we make telephone calls and more. We wanted a melting pot, not a social salad bowl, but we have no planned direction. A quote from Lewis Carroll, author of The Adventures of Alice in Wonderland. Quote, if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. Unquote. An open border has other dreadful consequences, like human trafficking, that forces women and children into prostitution, and a multi-billion drug smuggling and distribution industry. Many border crossers end up indebted to the drug cartels and are coerced to become drug mules across the border, drug runners in our communities, work slaves to the drug trafficking industry. There is a poisoning of our society with Chinese manufactured fentanyl. It is an embedded national drug distribution network. Now, my take. This trend is still reversible, but if not, consider the potential. The population of the US is some 335 million, while Latin America and the Caribbean have over 550 million. 1/3 are poor. Immigration law today deals with anchor babies from women that fly in just in time to give birth to an American citizen, and with chain migration of immigrants bringing in their family members. The US has issued a low number of permanent immigration visas annually, the most desirable for legal immigrants to relocate their families to the US. The total US permanent immigration visas in 2021 were roughly 285,000. Relatives and family-sponsored visas consume most of them. We turn away PhD graduates and skilled workers, even American-educated graduates. Let me propose solutions to arrest what can only be described as an unarmed territorial invasion. First, let's return to the tested, effective policies of the past. Finish the wall. It works. Reinstitute the stay in Mexico asylum policy and proceed with the rapid deportation of criminal illegal aliens. Second, let's pursue the temporary visa overstayers. They make up some 40% of undocumented immigrants. We need to use biometric identification to find, arrest, and deport them. Third, require E-Verify for employment, with severe penalties for employers who ignore it. Fourth, increase the legal permanent immigration quota. Use merit-based preference from around the world. Let's supply all the qualified workers our economy needs first. We can then take in a reasonable number of economic refugees from around the world. Finally, no new amnesties until the borders are completely secured. We have had 7 amnesties since 1986. In that year, President Ronald Reagan was blindsided with promises of closing the border, and he signed a bill providing amnesty to millions. It was a temporary measure, but as economist Dr. Milton Friedman reminds us, quote, Nothing is so permanent as a temporary government program, unquote. Now, what do we do? What can we do with the tens of millions already established here? Mass deportation is impossible. Can you imagine the US deporting a number of people the size of the population of California? What we need is a national mass registration program for all law-abiding undocumented immigrants already established here. Let's involve the community, agencies, NGOs, and churches. Most important, they must want to become Americans, not just live here. A quote from President Theodore Roosevelt, quote, "There can be no divided allegiance here. Any man who says he's an American, but something else also, isn't an American at all. We have room but for one flag, one language, and one sole allegiance to the American people," unquote. It is not hard to understand the root causes of this immigration. Economic refugees follow the money. They will feed their families through jobs or through crime. And where are the jobs? The internet created virtual commerce and remote control industrial production. We then allowed an unpatriotic and amoral group in the American elite to go with the most profit in the enslaved labor of communist China. A wiser course would have been to steer the jobs across our southern border. We should start now. The massive unvetted undocumented immigration across an open border is an existential threat to the American way of life. This cannot be allowed to continue. Above all, let's concentrate on compassion and human love. Undocumented immigrants are people too. Let me conclude with a quote from His Excellency Thomas Wensky, Catholic Archbishop of Miami, who, when speaking on the subject of undocumented immigration, simply said, quote, "No man is a problem," unquote. This concludes our episode today. You can tune in to new episodes in my audio and video podcast on the first and the middle of every month. Your support makes it possible for me to continue to speak out. You can subscribe, purchase my eclectic art, my books, my services, or simply make a donation. Please visit my website at 15minuteswithcarlos.com. This is Carlos L. Arce signing off. Make yourself a great day.